Hi, I'm Jerry Kirkland. I'm the Regional Inspector General for Audit for HUD's Office of Inspector General in Fort Worth, Texas. And I have with me Dana Young, who's a Senior Auditor, and Jake Williams, who's an Assistant Regional Inspector General for Audit. And we're here to kind of give you a summary of our audit of HUD's implementation and oversight of compliance with environmental requirements. And our objective of the review was just to determine whether or not HUD did comply with the requirements and also whether they ensured the grantees follow all the requirements.
During our survey, we found that HUD had generally not complied with their environmental regulations. This resulted in us recommending a memorandum of understanding or a cooperation agreement between the three program offices. Community Planning and Development and Housing did agree there were problems and were willing to implement a memorandum of understanding. However, Public and Indian Housing believed they were doing everything correctly, so they weren't willing to implement the agreement. Due to this, we ended up going out and auditing 5 Public and Indian Housing field offices to determine if they were implementing the environmental requirements correctly, and found that none of them had implemented their internal controls that they had set forth in their environmental review guidance, which resulted in them allowing public housing agencies to spend almost $405 million for activities that did not meet the environmental requirements.
So in addition to this overall review, we found there was a lack of training. HUD was not training its staff, and it wasn't training its grantees. HUD was also not monitoring its staff, and it wasn't monitoring its grantees. And there was no reporting process for the field offices to let headquarters know about their environmental concerns. The reason for this, HUD didn't clearly define the program responsibilities, and public housing didn't understand the requirements, or it did not consider compliance to be a priority.
The effect of all of the non-compliance found 3 really good examples to present. One of them was public housing allowed housing units to be developed on a former landfill. Another example was after a lawsuit was settled with a public housing agency, the field office continued and the housing authority continued to allow the residents to live on this contaminated public housing development, well known as Alteld Gardens, and is nicknamed the Toxic Donut. The final example was a housing authority purchased property that is contaminated and has plans on redeveloping housing units on this property.
But there was an example too where HUD's monitoring can be shown to be effective. For example, Community Planning and Development detected an instance of non-compliance in a series of critical action projects, such as building fire stations and police stations and community centers, and they mitigated the damage before all of them were completed.
So our report includes several recommendations, but a couple of the key ones were that HUD just needs to develop and implement some procedures that helps it better ensure that it complies with the environmental requirements, and to either establish an independent office with overall departmental responsibility for oversight, or develop an agreement between the various program offices that clearly outlines their responsibilities. I'd like to thank you for watching our video cast. I also encourage you to visit us at hudoig.gov, where you can read the full report as well as the 5 reports on the field offices.